What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. We are going to be talking about one player, Dynasty Price Check. Checking out Quentin Johnston from the Chargers. Had a disappointing season so far for fantasy managers out there. But what exactly is his Dynasty Outlook and his Dynasty value right now? So we're going to be looking at Outlook, but we also are going to be going through Superflex and one quarterback trades, what his value is. And these are actual trades out there in actual leagues, right? We're just not talking buy and not giving you a reason. So we're going to be looking at kind of why we should maybe be buying or selling depending on price and taking a look at real trades in your league. So hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys on the other side. All right, let's get into Quentin Johnston. What we've kind of seen from him this year obviously hasn't been good, right? You see the numbers on the screen. Standard wide receiver 117, half PPR wide receiver 109, PPR wide receiver 108. Like, not good, right? And you look at the fantasy points per game and overall, like, he has not performed what we've wanted him to perform like. So 7 games, 12 receptions, 21 targets, 114 yards. And, to a lot of people's credit out there, and I think like the thing with Quentin Johnston that people need to understand is like it was going to take him time. And there's a lot of people out there that in the preseason said, hey, Joshua Palmer is going to kind of get some run there, right? Like they really like him. He was coming off that career game recently against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 133 yards. So Palmer was really someone that they liked. Mike Williams, I mean, had he not gotten injured, I don't think Quentin would have even seen the field at this point, right? So with Mike Williams being out for the year, I think it did give Quentin a little bit of run. But yeah, he hasn't been there. He's still learning the offense. It seems like he's probably still learning the nuances of the league. But what are we looking for, right? So when we talk about Dynasty, what are we looking at? So I think one thing to kind of understand with Kellen Moore's offense, I think they've struggled getting him the ball in places where he can succeed, right? Like he's a track guy right now. He's running a ton of routes. He's just not getting the targets. Everybody makes the, hey, he's a track star. I think that little nuances where they did last game. So what we have seen in the last game, he got a little of a bump, right? He had those 6 targets, 5 catches, 50 yards. He had a wide receiver 47 finish in PPR, which is a career high for him. They got him moving a little bit more like drag routes over the middle. Little things that TCU was able to do for him, if you didn't watch college football, that elevated his game, right? Like the contested catch stuff is there, but Quentin Johnston, I think his hands at times can struggle. So like just throwing him the ball on deep routes, which is what this offense was doing for a while, is not necessarily going to make him successful. Like getting him out in space, getting him different routes that he can kind of use that athleticism and that speed at 6'4", 215. He's a specimen, right? He's not Mike Williams. And I keep saying that. I said it on the Football Guys Dynasty football show this week. He's not Mike Williams. Everybody just wanted to pin him in as the next Mike Williams. I think he's more nuanced as a route runner. I think he can be used in different ways. I think they were trying to use him as copy, a carbon copy of Mike, and that's not who Quentin Johnston is. From a dynasty standpoint, him getting more involved in the offense is great. Mike Williams is probably going to move on after this year. That's a hard time bringing him back with that. Keenan Allen's getting older. I think they do like Palmer and whatever that means for Quentin Johnston. I think based on talent, I still like Johnston there. But from like just a future, like he's tied to Justin Herbert. He's tied to Justin Herbert. So when we think of some of these other wide receivers that we see kind of fail, is that they're not tied to a quarterback like this, right? Now, will he live up to those expectations? I think it's too early to tell if he's a bust or not. I know a lot of people are going to throw it out on social media and they're going to label it's a bust, it's a bust, it's a bust. But the funny thing is, like, when you think about like what Quentin Johnston is, he was going to always kind of be a developmental guy, right? Like it was going to take some time for him to really kind of develop. And I think that's one thing to kind of keep a note for his value moving forward. He's tied to Justin Herbert. It was always going to take him more time, and we are starting to see maybe a little bit of production. I know Chicago is one of the worst teams in the NFL, but against the Jets, Detroit, what can he do in these next 2 games? And if he gives you positive outlook here on a future, perception in Dynasty is key, right? If he has a few good games towards the end of the year, I mean, he has a pretty good schedule. I like the Las Vegas matchups, the 2 Denver matchups. Those matchups look good for him. Even if, like, let's say he's not necessarily a starting piece, where you throw him in the lineup, you're comfortable. If he has a few good games towards the end of the year, his value is going to kind of get insulated almost. Like, oh, okay, this is what he did. Now, oh, Mike Williams is gone. Oh, Keenan Allen's getting older. Oh, maybe they don't, whatever happens with Palmer. And then people will talk themselves into him having a breakout year two. So even if you wanted to buy him now, you might sell him in the offseason for more, right? It doesn't mean you have to keep him on your roster. So that's one of those things in Dynasty that I think people forget. It's like, hey, you might be able to just buy now like a stock. Future, hey, you see that future? Your future might be bright. You might get some targets. There's really no other place to go is up for Quentin Johnston in terms of his value. And when we talk about it overall, like when we're looking at his Dynasty Outlook and his value here, you see it. He tickled up a little bit this last couple of weeks, but he's pretty low. Like this is almost the lowest he has been outside of the first probably month of the season when people were a little down on him. So he's still getting valued fairly low in terms of that, where that value is at. Now, when we're talking about his Superflex value, so again, remember, these are trades that happen in 12-team Superflex PPR, but also just what his value is going for in other sites. Keep trade cutties at wide receiver 45. Football guys, we're a little higher at wide receiver 32. TDR here, we're at wide receiver 30 because we're looking at value and looking at his full Dynasty Outlook, right? You can't just be, draft bias in this thing. Like, yeah, he's not getting the targets here, but, you weren't buying him at those prices or getting him in rookie drafts for this year, the first 7 games of the season. That's not why you're getting Quentin Johnston if you believe in him. Now, here's some deals he's going for. Johnson in a third for Will Levis. I thought was interesting with Superflex. Will Levis obviously had the 4-touchdown game. He has that Thursday night game. What is that going to look like? Obviously, when you're watching this video, he hadn't played yet. If you're watching it when it comes out, that value might shift dramatically. Quentin Johnston straight up for Treylon Burks, which I think is an interesting deal. I think I'd rather have Quentin Johnston there. Like, I'm pretty out on Treylon Burks. I've always kind of been out. Don't have any shares. If you watched the show, for 2 years, I was one of those guys that was kind of out on him, while other people were drafting him over Garrett Wilson or Drake London. Then you have Quentin Johnston in second for Jared Goff. Again, another interesting one. If you need a quarterback, if you lost Kirk Cousins or whatever, there might be value in using Johnson in a piece to go get a guy like Goff who could solidify that QB2 mark, right? So I like to show you these deals in context because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy or sell him. I'll tell you at the end what I would be doing with Quentin Johnston, but just gives you guys ideas. Oh, hey, maybe I can pair him with this. Quentin Johnston for Najee Harris, 2 pieces. Najee's kind of trending down. I think he was running back 32 the last time I looked. Quentin Johnston sitting there. Maybe you just take a shot at Quentin Johnston. You're a rebuilder, right? Quentin Johnston, a first for Stafford. Again, that's where you kind of add that piece to go get a quarterback. A first for Stafford. I think you could probably get it done with a second if you can get for Jared Goff. So that's kind of the value change there. Quentin Johnston, a first for Puka Nacua. Crazy that you probably think you'd have to flip that and add some, right, before the season started. Now it's on the other side, and I think that's a very, very interesting value change there. And then Quentin Johnston, Antonio Gibson for Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's dynasty value is definitely teetering out. He's looked fine, but hasn't looked amazing. Maybe you pivot off of Mixon. You believe in Johnston. Maybe you believe Gibson's going to find a different role like Swift. Now, in one quarterback, because I do like to value that, because I know we don't always talk about one quarterback. Here's what he's kind of going for. Gabe Davis straight up, a second straight up, Adam Thielen, Quentin Johnston, and Michael Thomas for DeAndre Swift. Man, if you need a running back, I love that Swift deal. I think that Swift deal is fun. You go get a running back for a contending team. Quentin Johnston, Devon Chan for Breece Hall. Johnson and Kareem Hunt in the 24th third. Johnson for Roshan Johnson. And then Quentin Johnston for Chris Godwin. So his value's all over the market, right? I love that Breece Hall deal to go get Breece. Like, if you can do that, I'm smashing that all day. But then on the other side, like, I probably would take a shot on Quentin Johnston over Kareem Hunt in the third, right? Or, over Roshan Johnson. Or over, I don't know about Godwin. I'd probably stick with Godwin on that one. Just that perennial safe floor guy. But there are pieces here. Adam Thielen is another example. Adam Thielen is a veteran wide receiver that had no value before the season started. Now he kind of does. You pivot off that if you're a rebuilder or a retooler. You get Quentin Johnston as someone that you can kind of build around or just build a roster around. You're obviously right now, Quentin's not showing that he can be a actual dynasty wide receiver 1 or 2, like some people had thought, right? But he's still someone that can maybe collect value. I was talking about beginning of this video and saying, hey, maybe you can collect that value over the offseason. Maybe you can pivot, move off of him. And there's one thing that I can tell you. People love second year projected wide receiver breakouts in Dynasty. They love them. They'll go after them. They'll trade for them. So there is value to be had in that instance. So hope this kind of helps with what Quentin Johnston's price is. To me, I think he's a very good target for rebuilders or retoolers or guys that just kind of have ability, like draft capital or something just to kind of give out. Like if you have an older piece like Gabe Davis and you're not a contender, there's no reason to keep him on your roster. Pivot off, go get Johnston. Like, there's value to be had there. As far as contending goes, yeah, I don't necessarily do that in terms of buying him. But if you can maybe get him thrown in, like if you're a contender and you have a piece and you have like a draft capital and you go get a guy like a running back and then, hey, I want Johnston thrown in, you might be able to do that. And that's how contenders stay contending. Hey, you just, hey, I'll stash him on my waiver or my bench. I'll just be there a taxi, right? If you have a taxi, if you're able to do that, I'll stash him there. I don't need him this year. And then he can kind of be a piece that I have. And then you can maneuver him if you're a contender over the offseason. So that's generally how I would look at Quentin Johnston as value. But hey, let me know in the comments, what deals have you seen for Quentin Johnston? Are you willing to buy or sell, or what trades you have? I'll always love to comment and talk to you guys there. So appreciate you guys. Check you guys next time.